That's on the Top Priority album. That's Phil B and that's Rory Gallagher, and he's here with us live in the studio. Rory, what about Brendan is on the drums, and he has been all this decade, let's say, and of course Jerry's been there on bass since 1971, since the first album, was that the?
Yeah, first album.
Wow, yeah, that's right, all the way, not even Juice, like the Rory Gallagher album.
Yeah, he was on that album, yeah.
So in between you've had a few drummers, but I mean you've had some inserts as well, like keyboards. What about fleshing out the sound anymore? Do you want to do that?
Well, on the last album, Lou Martin played on one track, but that we did. In fact, we had a fella called John Cook, who plays a few little bits on the album, who did one American tour with us, and I've been tempted. You know, you audition the odd person, but it's you gain and you lose. You gain all these chords and arrangements, but you lose that rhythmic openness. But you know, you keep looking and you keep an open mind about adding people. I mean, we've got Mark Felton playing harp at the moment.
Yeah, from 9 Below Zero.
Yeah, he's playing a lot of gigs with us. But keyboard is a whole other. It's
but did you not think that the experiments you had with keyboards were just, I mean, brilliant? I mean, like things like, I mean, Walk on Hot Coals or Daughter of the Everglades or the Tattoo album.
Yeah.
I mean, like, they were great.
Oh, yeah, I'm not knocking them. It's just that, you know, it's something that I might go back to. I'm not, but just for the moment, I kind of like the openness of the drums, bass and guitar. Yeah.
You've said that the Defender album is different than anything you've done before. How do you see it as being different?
Well, I think it is as a unity, you know, I think it's got a sort of a theme running through it. It's not just
a concept album, Rory.
Oh, yeah, nearly. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose I just went through so much agony getting that album done, and then having thrown one away before that. I mean, I can't say I'm entirely satisfied. I mean, I'm not walking around saying that, but I think it's got a mood, and it means what it says, and it's got a. I feel kind of that it's convincing. That's all I could say. Which doesn't mean it's Sgt. Pepper's or anything else, but it's. Also, I was fighting against what I saw as the current theme of attitudes in a lot of production and a lot of music, and I made the album for my own headstone, not for great success or anything. I mean, that's genuine. I just made the album for my own, you know, enjoyment.
Well, back in the early 70s, you could have been, I mean, it was always blues based. It was always the word blues mentioned with Rory Gallagher. I mean, the first Taste album, Sugar Mama, everything like that. Yeah. And that was like, what, 67, the first Taste album, 68, whatever.
Yes.
So, and then on the boards, the second one. So, what about the idea of the fact that if you were roped in the early 70s with the Deep Purples, etc., on another level, which you were as well, hard rock or whatever you want to call it, even free, whatever, that nowadays that hard rock or metal or whatever is a lot different the way than it used to be, even though there's still a huge audience out there for all types of metal. I mean, for instance, do you think that a lot of the metal type bands that you would see on MTV and all the explosions on stage and the tight loon pants and the ludicrous sort of way they have to go on, it's just de rigueur now for the metal bands, do you think that you want the fans to go to them to look at you as well because you're playing good hard rock as well?
Well, I mean, I'd like people to say, well, he plays the toughest rock around, but he does it with the minimum of frills, and I want to play tough blues as well. The problem with heavy metal is that you know, you have the heavy metal side of it, say, I mean, I think it ends with the Rolling Stones, because they still have, you know, they put on a ridiculous visual show, but they still have the credible music, and say Free were a good band, and a few others, but then it was a glut of bands with all the cliched metal things, and then the smoke bombs, the chains, and the videos always, you know, driving the Rolls Royce straight into the swimming pool and all that. It's fun, but it's I don't know. It is just over the top. It doesn't mean anything.
Do you think a lot of it is just basic sort of like wild pop music? It's got nothing to do with the real thing or whatever that might be.
Well, I mean, if you want to be very fair to say, some of the metal bands, I mean, some of the fantastic hard drummers really kick up a storm, and they're fairly raunchy guitarists, but they're tied, bit by bit, they become tied to the sort of the routine, which you could apply to any rock band, but at least if you leave yourself a few avenues open, you don't everything doesn't have to be a big riff number, and everything doesn't have to be, you know, Hall of the Mountain King of rock and roll, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't mind, you know, a good hard rock band. say Lizzie, for instance, were bordering on metal, but at least they were doing songs and it was well played, and it had more than just the one dimension. But I don't know. It's to each his own. But I think the less gimmickry, the better. And try and make it as down home as possible.
What about Lizzie? Did you know Phil Lynott well?
Fairly well. I played with him I jammed with him in Cologne, and then we did a thing at Punch and Stone.
That's right, you had the hot press thing, yeah.
And I bumped into him a few times over the years, and never had really long chats or anything, but just, and I knew Brian Downey a wee bit, and Scott and all those. But I wasn't a close friend or anything, but I did cross paths, that's the only way I could put it.
And when you go to America now, these days, do you hear a lot about U2?
Sure enough, naturally. I mean, if you're front of Time magazine, what can you do? I mean, they are well known, doing very well. Yeah.
Do you know them at all?
I know a wee bit. I haven't seen them for a while now, but they did a gig with us in Aylesbury or somewhere years ago, and I met them in London. I met them here at some function, or two functions. But I haven't seen them for a while. I know them a wee bit, but I don't, know them very well.
What kind of music do you listen to? I mean, would you listen to any of the metal bands around? Would you listen to U2? Would you listen to Lizzie albums if you went home now tonight, or what?
I listened to a few U2 tracks or a few Lizzie tracks. I'd listen to Pogues tracks. I'd listen to a variety. I'd listen to a country track. But the main stable diet day to day for me is like R&B or blues or rock and roll. But I'm not ultra sort of narrow-minded about it,
And when you say like all that, like do you listen to things like Buddy Guy and Junior Wells and Muddy Waters and Blind Boy Fuller and Big Bill Broonzy and the whole list of them still, all the time?
Absolutely, yeah. You've got to, I want to sort of, you get to a certain point in your life where you have to really beat this European blues stigma, which was connected to, say, with Fleetwood Mac and Blue Horizon, Chicken Shack and all that. I mean, they did their thing, but they all stopped at a certain point, and I tried, while writing my own material and try to play modern music, I even at the expense of being unpopular, I try to dig deeper and deeper, and that's the process I'm going through at the moment. I'm trying to find out, like, the blues isn't just B.B. King or all the popular people like Albert Collins or Albert King. There are a lot of fantastic players and singers and so on in there. It's just a great hobby for me. I'm not making a big professorship out of it, but I think that it's more than just playing a few Freddie King numbers or being on Blue Horizon, with all due respect,
Yeah, because like back in '68 direction, say, with all the Blues Breakers and all those sort of the Chicken Shacks, etc. I mean, if Fleetwood Mac were at the forefront of that, I get the impression that like Fleetwood Mac being Mick Fleetwood, say, and John McVie, that's how they got their name, the bass player and the drummer. Now, they're still the mainstay of the band. They still give the band a good sound, regardless of what you might think of the pop songs they've been making. But I mean, like, I get the impression those guys, like, since Rumours hit big, say, 10 years ago, and they became millionaires and they're huge and they've relocated to California, I get the impression that those two guys are just laughing at the whole thing. That like they don't really mean this at all, and like their roots are really still back in the marquee and that, and that's what they'd rather be doing.
Well, I don't know. The proof is in the eating. I mean, I don't think. I mean, if you heard their new record, you can't seriously give these guys medals. I mean, it's a con. I mean, they're nice guys, and maybe they play the odd blues record at home, but that's. I'll probably get knifed in the alleyway after this, but I mean, that's precisely what I would want to become, with huge albums like that. It's nothing. They should change the name of the band. Let's be honest about it.
Because it was really Peter Green's band, if you think about it, I suppose.
Well, the music they play, I'm not saying that you can't change over the years, but it's totally different from. It's like if you took, I don't know, let's say the Dubliners brought out a heavy metal album and went a million miles away from the folk or traditional music they play. You couldn't really call it the Dubliners anymore. I know that sounds a bit catty, but I think, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not knocking Fleetwood Mac as such, but I think they've gone the full entire cycle. I don't know, that new stuff they do is just Chinsano music, it's just...
Yeah, Chinsano music.